Hello everyone! Welcome to Module 6, Giving Corrective Feedback. In this video, I talk about mistakes and errors, the reason why second language learners make errors, the importance of errors, ways to anticipate and avoid errors, and basic stages to encourage learners to self-correct. First of all, let's talk about the different kinds of mistakes. According to Gao et al. 2005, a mistake can be thought of as a slip of the tongue or the pen. Slips are the results of tiredness or other temporary emotion or circumstances. Students make them because they are not concentrating on what they are saying or writing. Slips are not a result of incomplete language process or a lack of knowledge. They happen simply because students' attention is somewhere else at that moment. Students are able to correct it themselves with or without the guidance of the teacher or other students. An error is much more deeply rooted. The student might believe that what he or she is saying is correct, or they might not know what the correct form should be, or even when they know what the correct form should be, but they are not able to get it right. Errors are usually produced regularly and systematically. That is why we teachers should be on the lookout for frequent errors. Asking students to try again is often the best way of helping you decide whether the incorrect form is an error or a mistake. Sometimes, students make attempts to say things which are beyond their language knowledge. And so, they have a go and make a bit of mess of it. We need to be aware of what kind of mistake is being made so that we can correct it appropriately. Students can self-correct slips, but they need more help and explanation if they have made an error. Attempt mistakes are perfect opportunities for teaching new language, because it is language that the student clearly want. According to Spread 2005 et al., there are two main reasons why second language learners make errors. The first reason is influence from the learner's first language or L1 on the second language or L2. This is called interference or transfer. Learners may use sound patterns, lexis, or grammar structures from their own language in English. The second reason why learners make errors is because they are unconsciously working out, organizing, and experimenting with language they have learned. This kind of error is called a developmental error. These errors are common to all learners and are often similar to those made by young children learning their mother tongue. Obviously, both you and the students would rather they didn't commit errors. However, errors also have an important role to play. For one thing, errors are part of learners' interlanguage. That is, the learner's own version of the second language, which they speak as they learn. Learners unconsciously process, that is, analyze, and reorganize their interlanguage, though it is not fixed. It develops and progresses as learners learn more. Experts think that interlanguage is an essential and unavoidable stage in language learning. In other words, interlanguage and errors are necessary to language learning. L1 learners go through a stage similar to the interlanguage stage when children learn their mother tongue. They seem to speak their own version of it for a while to make progress on some language items, then go backwards and to make mistakes for a time before this mistake finally disappear, usually without obvious correction. In addition, errors are a natural part of learning. By making errors, learners are testing out their ideas about the language. By receiving appropriate feedback, students gradually get to know the difference between correct and incorrect language. Through their attempts with the new language, students' natural mental processes are working on and experimenting with it. By making attempts, language learners realize that they don't know something and they try to put it right. For example, if you fall off a bicycle through your own fault, you realize that you did something wrong and you make sure you don't make the same mistake again. Similarly, as we communicate with others and see that our communication isn't working, we try again, using other words or aiming for greater accuracy. We go through stages of learning new language, and each new piece of language we learn helps us learn more fully other pieces of language that we already know. Besides, students' errors also help teachers to modify their teaching accordingly. By noting the errors that the students make, teachers can see what needs focusing on in future lessons. Errors that reveal wrong ideas about meaning can help you assess students' understanding. The extent to which students make errors in freer practice can tell us how much new language has been absorbed and how much more practice is needed. But do mistakes matter? We all know people who speak fairly broken English, and yet they can make themselves understood perfectly well. No one worries too much about the errors they make. However, in certain circumstances, mistakes do matter. When students speak, they may have an accent which is influenced by their first or second language. There is nothing wrong with it unless what they are saying is unintelligible. Pronunciation teaching is all about making sure that the students are as intelligible as possible to as many people as possible. We will need to concentrate on stress and intonation, especially because when mistakes are made with these, they can affect meaning. Mistakes matter in writing. This is partly because writing doesn't flash past like conversation, but stays there for us to look at again and again. People can think that someone's English is worse than it is if they see spelling mistakes, bad handwriting, and poor vocabulary use. Whereas, if they heard the same person speak, they might have a better impression. So, how can teachers anticipate and help students avoid errors? Obviously, students are less likely to make errors of meaning if the language has been presented well with adequate highlighting, clarifying, and checking of understanding. And they are less likely to make errors with the form if they have been given sufficient control practice in saying and writing the language. One way of helping teachers cope with errors that occur in the classroom is to try to anticipate any that might come up. If you know what might come up, you are likely to be more alert to the errors that do come up. So, you should familiarize yourself with all aspects of an item of language you are focusing on. For example, likely pronunciation problem can often be worked out by writing out the item in phonemic script in your lesson plan beforehand. As Gao et al. 2005, the more you know about the language you are teaching, the less likely you are to mislead students and cause teacher-induced errors. Besides, familiarize yourself with the typical grammatical, lexical, and pronunciation problems associated with your student, because people of certain nationality tend to have particular problems with certain aspects of the language they are learning. Now, let's move on to the main stages to enable students to correct. You see, the ability to correct sensitively, efficiently, and effectively is a skill that takes time to perfect. The basic principle is that students learn more effectively if they are guided in such a way that they eventually correct themselves, rather than if they are given the correct version of something straight away. The struggle to get it right also helped them to understand why they were wrong. Gao et al. 2005 proposed 3 stages of the process. First, students must know something is not accurate, but this needs to be done in a sensitive way. For example, in speaking, first, let student finish his or her utterance. Students usually find it disconcerting to be interrupted midstream. Instead, make a gesture like a wave of the finger, or give some nod to discouraging word like nearly. Then, he or she must know where the error is. For instance, in speaking, you need to isolate for the student the part of the utterance that is wrong. Finally, the student must know what kind of error it is. The student will need to know whether the problem is grammatical, syntactical, or phonological. You can say, for example, verb, tense, word stress, wrong word. In speaking, for instance, finger correction is particularly useful and can be used to indicate an unnecessary word, a missing word, or contraction. You can also use other useful gestures. However, it is important that the student understand them and that you use the same gestures each time to represent the same things. With such guidance, it is believed that students will be able to correct themselves confidently. In conclusion, in this video, I have talked about errors and reasons why second language learners make errors. Roles of errors in language learning, how to anticipate and avoid errors, and basic stages to enable learners to self-correct. In the next video, I'll talk about the people who may involve in the correction process and how much correction is appropriate. Thanks for watching.